My wife was incredibly cold and aloof. In our 50 years of marriage, she never once said she loved me, until the day I lay dying at the age of 70. I forced out one last smile and asked her, "In our 50 years of marriage, have you ever loved me, even for a single day?" Seeing her hesitate, I already had my answer. I glanced at the descendants Li Xia and I had brought into this world, standing in the hazy room. And finally, I left her with my last words. If we could do it all over again, I would never want to love you again. With that, I closed my eyes and lost consciousness. But when I woke up again, I'd actually been reborn and sent back to my high school days. In this life, I decided I would never get involved with Li Xia again. But 3 months before the college entrance exams, she suddenly transferred to our class, and she insisted on sitting right next to me. I instinctively shifted my chair, wanting to get as far away from her as possible. But she grabbed me by the collar. "Yang Jian, why did you die so fast?" I hadn't even answered your question yet. I took a moment to get used to this youthful body and glanced at the classmates diligently listening to the lecture around me. This wasn't a dream, perhaps because of my intense final wish right before I died in my past life. I was truly reborn. Since God gave me this second chance, then in this life, I will never mess with Li Xia again. In my previous life, because the Li family's company ran into some trouble, the Li family proposed a marriage alliance with my Yang family, so they could secure a partnership with our company. Li Xia was the famous genius beauty of First High, a top-tier straight-A student. She even became an international master violinist later on. Meanwhile, I was the dead last slacker sitting in the back row by the window. I barely got into a third-rate college. After graduating, I followed my family's arrangements, went to learn the ropes at our family company, and eventually took over my dad's position. Because Li Xia was both beautiful and sensible, my dad happily agreed to our marriage. And I was more than willing too. But back then, Li Xia already had someone she liked. The Li family forcefully tore them apart and made her marry me instead. After we got married, she was never happy. No matter how good I was to her, or how much I did for her, she never once gave me a smile. That's why I asked her on my deathbed if she had ever loved me for even a single day in those 50 years. The truth proved that even 50 years wasn't enough to move her heart. In this life, I won't bother her anymore. But I won't interfere with the business partnership between our families, because a few years from now, the Li family's company will grow beyond anyone's expectations, and the Yang family will reap a lot of dividends from it. So partnering with them is perfectly fine. I won't get in the way of that. I just don't need the Li family to sell their daughter to me. What I need to do in this life is to seize the time and study hard, to make up for the regrets of my past life, and use the 50 years of knowledge I've accumulated to fulfill my dad's dream of taking our company's products to the international market. So, in the time leading up to the college entrance exams, I studied like a madman. Seeing me act like a completely different person, my classmates were shocked. "Yang Jian, you don't even play basketball after class anymore. You don't even go play Valorant after school. Are you possessed by a ghost or something?" I time traveled back from 50 years in the future. Not getting into a top-tier university was my biggest regret in my past life, so I'm making up for it now. Naturally, my deskmate looked at me like I was insane. A dead last slacker from the back row by the window. Wanting to get into a top-tier university? It was pure delusion. Half a month later, my dad called and told me to come home early after school. We were having guests over for dinner. He also told me to pick up some gifts that a girl might like. I knew Li Xia was coming. In my past life, I figured since we were still high schoolers, buying lipsticks or designer bags wouldn't be appropriate. So I racked my brain and bought several huge bags of gifts, plushies, crafts, you name it. But in the end, Li Xia just gave them a cold glance and said, "Childish. Being with someone like you in the future, I can't even imagine how miserable my life will be." But in this life, I still bought several huge bags. Only this time, it was even more childish stuff. RC race cars, Barbie dolls, and so on. Almost entirely toys meant for little kids. I lugged the massive bags of gifts back home. When my dad saw me return and noticed all the stuff in my hands, he quickly winked at me. Then, pretending not to know, he said, "Son, it's your first time meeting Xiao Ya, and you brought her so many gifts? How come you've never been this thoughtful with me?" I couldn't be bothered to entertain him. I just carried the huge bags straight into the living room and casually dumped the toys out. The wheel of an RC car even snapped off from the fall. I dusted off my hands and looked at the aloof Li Xia. "Here, my dad told me to get you a gift. I was short on time, so I just grabbed these from a street stall. Otherwise, I would have gone to a big supermarket. The quality there is a bit better." Seeing the floor covered in toys meant for 3-year-olds, my dad was so furious he grabbed a spatula to hit me. But I wasn't scared. I lived to be 70 inches my past life. My dad isn't even 40 right now. Technically speaking, I'm the elder here. I flopped down onto the sofa, crossed my legs, and used the exact same tone I used to scold my grandson in my past life. "You're a grown adult, yet you don't act like one at all. What a disgrace." My dad, Li Xia, and her parents all froze in shock. After a moment, my dad let out an awkward laugh. "Well, my son and I have a great relationship. We usually joke around like this when there are no outsiders, so he clearly doesn't see you guys as outsiders." Hearing this, Xia's parents beamed with joy. Only Li Xia kept a straight, icy face. She probably thought that in this life, I'd still be willing to become family with her. But in this life, I have no intention of wasting another 50 years on someone who doesn't love me. I walked up to her and said coldly, "Since you don't like the gifts I bought, I'll just pack them up and play with them myself." I reached out to gather them up, but to my surprise, she snatched a Barbie doll right out of my hands. And, for the first time ever, she revealed a smile I had never seen before. "I love it." I was absolutely stunned. She smiled at me. How is that possible? In the 50 years I've known her, this was the very first time she smiled at me. Is she not Li Xia? Or was she possessed by someone else? Or maybe this Barbie doll really hit the spot for her? I couldn't be bothered to overthink it. No matter what her deal was, I wasn't going to have anything to do with her in this life. Sorry, I bought that Barbie for myself. The rest are yours. I thought that would definitely piss her off and lead to us cutting ties forever. But unexpectedly, she just held on to the toys I bought, still wearing that faint smile. In my past life, I bought her jewelry worth millions and designer bags, yet she never said an extra word to me. Could it be that her true passion is children's toys? I found her completely incomprehensible. Dinner started. My dad and her parents kept trying to play matchmaker, but I remained completely indifferent. Though she didn't say anything either, I knew she was deeply resisting this in her heart because she had a childhood friend she grew up with, a year younger than her. In my past life, I heard Li Xia was planning to confess to him. Right after high school graduation, my appearance tore them apart. So in this life, I'll gladly step aside and let you two be together. I just hope to have absolutely nothing to do with Li Xia ever again. It wasn't until midnight that their family of 3 finally got ready to leave. I hadn't spoken a single word to her the entire time. My dad dragged me to the door to see them off. Suddenly, Li Xia said she forgot her backpack. She left it on the sofa. My dad told me to go grab it for her. I reluctantly went and brought her backpack out and handed it to her. She looked at me peacefully and said, "Thank you." She actually said thank you to me? This was truly the biggest joke I've heard. In both of my lifetimes, my expression remained cold. I ignored her, turned around, and went straight back to my room. Behind me, I could hear my dad desperately trying to explain. He's just been in a bad mood lately. He's usually never like this. Please don't let this affect the marriage between our families. The next day, I went to school as usual. But halfway through the morning, the homeroom teacher announced that we had a new transfer student. When the person walked in, I was completely dumbfounded, because the new student was none other than Li Xia. The teacher gave a brief introduction and told Li Xia to take a seat in the front row. Li Xia's grades were at the very top of her previous school, first high. So the teacher arranged for her to sit right next to the class president. But to everyone's surprise, Li Xia shook her head and walked straight toward me. She held out her hand and said with a polite smile, "We meet again. Can I sit next to you?" I froze. Was she talking to me? Before I could process it, Li Xia asked again, "Yang Jian, can I sit next to you?" The homeroom teacher hurried over. He quickly told her, "Yang Jian is the worst student in the class. Don't sit with him. Go sit with the class president. He's ranked first in the whole school. You two can study together and help each other improve." I wasn't mad hearing that. After all, it was the truth. Though I wasn't a bad kid in high school, I skipped class all the time just to play basketball. Li Xia rejected the teacher's offer. She smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, sir, but I'll sit with Yang Jian. We know each other." The teacher frowned, then shot me a warning glare. "Don't you dare drag down her studies." Li Xia's grades were good enough to aim for the top scorer in the city. In my past life, although she didn't get first place, she still ranked third. The only reason she dropped to third was because she found out about the arranged marriage with my family, which tore her away from her childhood sweetheart. So she underperformed during the exams. That's why the teacher treated her like a precious treasure. If Li Xia became the city's top scorer, the teacher would instantly ascend to greatness. His reputation would skyrocket, and his prestige in the school would go through the roof. But none of that was my business. In this life, I just want to get into a decent college, study finance properly, and use my 50 years of future knowledge to take my family's business to the next level. Thinking of this, my expression turned cold. I reached out and blocked the empty seat next to me. I'm used to sitting alone. I don't want anyone sitting next to me. Besides, Li Xia, we didn't even know each other before this. We only met once last night. Go find another seat. I don't want to drag down your grades. The entire classroom fell dead silent. No one expected me to reject a school idol-level beauty like her. Li Xia looked stunned for a second, but she quickly reverted to the person I knew, that high and mighty, domineering attitude. She slammed her backpack onto the desk, swatted my hand away, and sat right down. "You don't own this seat. I'll sit wherever I want." I had dealt with that exact face for 50 years. Seeing it now just made me sick to my stomach. I have no idea how I managed to endure it for 50 years in my past life. I slammed my book onto the desk, making her jump. "Fine. Sit wherever the hell you want. I can't stop you." With that, I packed up my bag, grabbed my things, and walked straight to the desk next to the trash can. It smelled a bit because of the garbage piled up year-round. There was an empty desk there, mostly used for storing junk. I shoved the junk aside, tossed my bag onto it, picked up my basketball from the floor, and waved at the other slackers in the back row. They instantly understood and immediately followed me out to play ball, leaving the homeroom teacher screaming in anger behind us. I played basketball with them all morning. At noon, after finishing our last game, I was about to go buy some ice water. Suddenly, a figure walked over and shoved a bottle of water into my hands. Here, it's not cold. You shouldn't drink ice water right after exercising. The guys looked at me with teasing grins, chuckling. Damjian, didn't know you had so much riz. We're so jealous, man. Yeah, room temperature water too. So thoughtful, I shot them a fierce glare. Shut up. Or next time, I'll dunk this ball right on your heads. Then I looked back at Li Xia, my expression turning cold again. No thanks. I prefer ice water. Listen, Li Xia, even though our families have a business partnership, forget about this arranged marriage my dad mentioned. I know you have a childhood sweetheart. You guys are really close, and you really like him, and I have absolutely zero interest in you. So there's no need for us to get to know each other. I'll talk to my dad. It won't affect the business between our families. This is for the best for both of us. With that, I shoved the water back into her hands, grabbed my basketball, and walked away. Rather than getting tangled up with her again and ending up dying with regrets like in my past life, it was better to draw a clear line right now. I arrived at the bus stop and was about to get on the bus when Li Xia came jogging over frantically from a distance. Her face was pale as she grabbed hold of me. I figured she was just pissed because I rejected her water earlier. I was just about to forcefully shake her off when suddenly, her grip tightened with surprising strength. She pinned me against the bus stop sign, grabbed my shoulders with both hands, and said with a hint of resentment, Yang Jian, don't think you're the only one who got reborn. If you keep treating me like this, believe it or not, I'll go complain to your dad that you're bullying your future wife. My mind instantly went blank. Li Xia had been reborn too. Seeing me frozen in silence, Li Xia continued, Yang Jian, I am your wife. In our 50 years of marriage and our past life, you couldn't even bear to raise your voice at me. But in this life, tell me, how many times have you yelled at me since yesterday? Seeing the tears welling up in her eyes, I furrowed my brow. She really was reborn too. But from the moment we met yesterday until now, everything she had done was completely unlike the Li Xia from my past life. It was like she had been possessed by someone else. I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't want to try. Since we both came back, then let's just make up for our own regrets. In her past life, she was torn away from her childhood sweetheart and forced by her family to marry me, living an unhappy life. In my past life, I married a woman who didn't love me. My dad worked himself to death for the company, and I ended up dying with my eyes wide open in regret. Plus, I never fulfilled my dad's dying wish of taking our company's products global. I looked at Li Xia and said, seriously, Li Xia, since you've been reborn too, that's perfect. In this life, I won't get in the way of you and your childhood sweetheart, and you don't need to force yourself to be with me, just to secure a partnership for your family. You married into my family and stayed for decades in our past life. You know my dad and I aren't the type to hold grudges. Besides, you were a business queen in your past life. With the knowledge you have now, even without my family's help, you can easily achieve greatness again in this life. I took a deep breath. After all, I had loved this woman for 50 years. Letting go still hurt my heart a little. Goodbye, Li Xia. With that, I turned to leave. Just then, a guy riding a loud, flashy scooter pulled up right in front of us. The guy on the scooter took off his sunglasses and grinned at Li Xia. Hey, Xia, I'm here to pick you up. Why the hell did you transfer schools anyway? Now I have to drive an extra half hour every day just to get you. I recognized this delinquent scooter kid. It was Li Xia's childhood sweetheart, Du Ziting. His family started out running an electronics factory, but they lost a lot of money later on, and the factory had been struggling ever since. Still, they were much wealthier than an average family. Li Xia's dad was originally a partner in that electronics factory, but he eventually pulled his shares out. So Li Xia and Du Ziting naturally grew up together. Because his dad's factory wasn't doing well, his dad gradually stopped paying attention to him. So he started hanging out with street thugs and delinquents and became a flashy scooter punk. But he was always pretty good to Li Xia. He never dragged her down with him to become a delinquent girl. Perhaps in Li Xia's eyes, that was exactly why she could never let go of her feelings for Du Zitang. Even after becoming a delinquent, he still couldn't bear to hurt her or let her turn into a bad girl. At this point in time, Du Zitang and I didn't know each other yet, and I had no desire to. I gave him a passing glance, then turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard Li Xia stomping her feet in frustration. Yang Jian, you bastard. When I reached the intersection and waited for the light, I instinctively glanced back and saw Li Xia getting onto Du Zitang's scooter. I looked up at the glaring midday sun. It stung my eyes so much that tears fell. Feelings grow over time, supporting each other through thick and thin. It was all bullshit. I poured my heart and soul into loving her for 50 years. Yet now that we're reborn, 50 years of love still couldn't beat her childhood sweetheart. When I got home, I took a few days off from school. I didn't want to go and see her. My dad was angry, but he couldn't force me. Because my mom passed away early, he always spoiled me, his only son. After resting for a few days, I told my dad I wanted to transfer schools. My dad stared at me in shock. The college entrance exams are right around the corner. Why would you transfer now? Besides, your fiancé specifically transferred from first high just to be in your class. If you leave, what is she supposed to do? I intentionally waved my hand in annoyance. When did I ever agree to that, Dad? I told you, I don't like her. Plus, she already has someone she likes, and it's not me. You can't force love. If you keep pushing me, I'll jump right off this third-floor balcony and go join Mom. Even though this villa only had 3 floors, it was over 10 meters high. Landing head first, needless to say, the Grim Reaper would definitely come knocking. Using my mom to threaten my dad worked every single time, and this time was no exception. He had no choice but to agree. Fine, fine, fine. Just calm down. I'll contact some schools for you. Only then did I smile at my dad. That's my good old dad. Don't worry. Once I transfer, your son will get into a top-tier university, study finance hard in college, and come back to help you build the business. Mom's spirit in heaven will bless us and watch our family thrive. My dad was so moved. He hugged me and cried for ages, but the very next day, he completely sold me out. Li Xia showed up at our house. She shoved my bedroom door open. I was still sleeping. I groggily opened my eyes, only to see her walk over to the window with practiced ease and yank the curtains wide open. Sunlight instantly flooded the room, blinding me so badly I couldn't keep my eyes open. I glared at her angrily. Li Xia, are you crazy? This is my house. What the hell are you doing barging into my room? Your house? Your room? I lived here for 50 years. This is my house too. My room. She still had that same bossy attitude from our past life. In our past life, we lived in this exact house after getting married, and my bedroom naturally became our master bedroom. She opened my closet and pulled out the clothes and underwear I usually wore. Li Xia, are you sick in the head? Li Xia looked at me, rubbed her chin, and smirked. So, you've had this sleeping habit since back then, I always thought. Get out. Make me. What are you going to do about it? I kept you in line for 50 years. Even if we're reborn, did you really think you could escape my grasp? Li Xia looked at me with a smile, which only fueled the intense anger burning inside me. In our past life, shortly after we got married, I realized she didn't love me. I brought up divorce, but she refused, using her pregnancy as an excuse. She even said that our lives were set and we should just make do with it. Now, God had given her a second chance, so she wouldn't have to be with me. Why did she insist on pestering me? Li Xia, acting like this will only make me disgusted by you. It will only make me slowly hate you. Hearing that, she froze. I ignored her, put on my clothes and pants, and opened the door to leave. But suddenly, Li Xia hugged me tightly from behind. Young Jian, I'm sorry. The question I didn't answer in our past life, I'll answer it in this life. I didn't give her the chance to finish. I pried her hands off me. You don't need to say it. I already knew the answer before I died. I loved you for 50 years, and I couldn't move your heart. Please, just let me go. I turned to look at her. In this life, can we just be strangers who know each other well? We're both still young. We're only 18, with our whole lives ahead of us. Eventually, you'll forget about me, the guy you never loved. You had regrets in your past life, and so did I. Let's just spend this life making up for our own regrets, okay? Tears streaming down her face, Li Xia shook her head frantically. No, you are my husband. 50 years of love. Can you really just throw it away? I swallowed bitterly. If I said it didn't hurt at all, that would be a lie, but I refuse to repeat the same mistakes. I can let it go. Li Xia wiped her tears, her eyes turning resolute. I know you don't believe me. In our past life, you treated me well for 50 years. In this life, it's my turn to treat you well for 50 years. No matter what I said, she stubbornly refused to listen. But there was no way I'd believe her. Now that she was reborn, how could she not go looking for the childhood sweetheart she always pined for? After going downstairs, my dad saw Li Xia and me coming down together. He instantly beamed with joy. Come, come, come. Son, daughter-in-law, I made breakfast for you two. I shot my dad a vicious glare, grabbed a steamed bun, and stormed out. Li Xia grabbed a bun too and followed right behind me. I ran, she ran. I stopped, she stopped. It was driving me insane. For a whole half-month, she followed me around 24/7. When I played basketball, she'd sit in the sun and wait for me. When I went to the internet cafe, she'd book the PC next to mine and watch movies. Even when I went to the bathroom, she'd wait for me outside. The whole school was in an uproar. No one could understand why a super genius, ranked first in the entire school, was spending all her time orbiting around me, the biggest slacker in class. There were even rumors that I was some rich heir, and Li Xia was trying to secure the bag. Li Xia ignored all of it, just stubbornly following me every single day. Until one day, she didn't show up to school, without her chattering in my ear. I finally had some peace and quiet. She didn't show up even after school ended. Since it was the last Friday of the month, we had a 2-day break. And with the college entrance exams approaching, a few of my close friends from other classes invited me out for dinner. Otherwise, once we all went our separate ways for college, we wouldn't have many chances left. Since Li Xia wasn't following me today, I happily agreed and went with them to a food stall. The food here was cheap and the portions were huge. It was the perfect spot for broke students. By the time we finished eating, it was already 10 p.m. We stood by the road trying to hail a cab. Suddenly, one of my buddies patted my shoulder and pointed toward the entrance of a nearby hotel. "Hey, Jian," he said. "Look over there. Isn't that your goddess Li Xia, who's been chasing you for half a month?" I looked in the direction he was pointing and saw Li Xia and Du Ziteng chatting and laughing as they walked out of the hotel together. Right at that moment, Li Xia spotted me too. Her face instantly dropped. She hurriedly ran over to me, with Du Ziteng following right behind her. I looked at her with a cold sneer. "We haven't even graduated high school yet, and you're already this impatient, stringing me along while booking a hotel room with your childhood sweetheart. If I'm not mistaken, she's only 18 right now." Seeing my icy expression, Li Xia frantically tried to explain. "Jian, listen to me. Li Xia, are you a hypocrite or what? I already told you. Since God gave you a second chance, just go be with your childhood sweetheart. Why do you insist on pestering me?" A taxi happened to pull up right in front of us. I flagged it down, let out a cold scoff, and got in. I told the driver to step on it. In the car, I still disappointingly shed a tear. "Why didn't Li Xia come back with you?" I let out a long sigh and said to my dad, "I want to go on a trip. I'll come back when it's time for the exams." Because my tone and expression said it all, my dad didn't ask any more questions. I bought myself a plane ticket to the coast because my dad once told me that my mom's only wish before she died was to go to the beach and see the ocean. I took my mom's urn and flew overnight to Haiku. Carrying my mom's urn, I traveled through all the coastal cities, finally arriving at the city my mom always dreamed of, Shanghai. My mom was originally from here. She married far away from home for love. Being able to marry my mom was a blessing my dad must have cultivated for 10,000 years. Today, the cosmetics company under the Yang family has many products inspired by my mom. That's why my dad always wanted to take our cosmetics to the global market. At dusk, I sat on the beach holding my mom's urn, watching the fading glow of the setting sun. Not far away, a mother and son were sitting on bamboo chairs. The boy looked about 15 or 16. He looked like he had just gone through his first heartbreak. Crying, he said to his mom, "Mom, why doesn't the girl I like me back? Is there really any girl in this world who would ever like me?" His mom patted his head and smiled. "Silly boy, when mom first met you, I was just a girl in my 20s. Hearing those words, my heart trembled. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. If my mom knew I suffered my whole life, loving a woman who didn't love me back for 50 years, she would definitely be heartbroken. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears and snot running down my face, I cried, "Mom, what did I do wrong? I loved her for 50 years. 50 years. Is her heart really made of stone? Does someone like me really not deserve love? Mom, I miss you." I hugged my mom's urn tightly, my tears dripping endlessly onto it. Suddenly, another crying voice echoed beside me, and another pair of hands reached out to hold the urn in my hands. "Mom, don't worry. In this life, I will take good care of Yang Jian." I swear, I froze. I turned my head to look. It was Li Xia. She was gripping my mom's urn with both hands, crying her eyes out. I instinctively tried to stand up, but she threw her arms around me. Crying, she pleaded, "Yang Jian, give me a chance. Just listen to me, okay? Once I'm done, if you still want to leave me, I promise I will never bother you again." I'm not lying. Holding my mom's urn, we looked at the setting sun on the horizon. She quickly wiped her tears, and with red eyes, she said, "Yang Jian, I know. You've always thought I liked Du Ziteng in our past life, and in this one too. But you're wrong. Dead wrong. I never once said I liked Du Ziteng. I don't even know who you heard that from. Du Ziteng and I are childhood friends. We grew up together, yes, but who says you have to fall in love with your childhood friend? In our past life, I didn't like you at first, because I didn't want to be a tool for my dad's business alliances. That's why I always gave you the cold shoulder. But later, after I got pregnant, didn't you notice I started treating you much better? When you asked for a divorce, I refused. I'm a woman. I was just being stubborn. Couldn't you tell? The reason I said those things was because I had slowly fallen in love with you. In our past life, managing both our families' companies put so much pressure on me I could barely breathe. I also had to find time to travel abroad for violin performances. I was so exhausted. I knew you treated me well, but every time I came home, I was so tired I just wanted to lie down and rest. And I really didn't care about those designer bags or jewelry. Didn't you notice that the ring and bracelet I always wore were the ones you bought me the very first time we went shopping? Hearing her say that, it suddenly hit me. Even though both our families were incredibly wealthy, she never wore the expensive jewelry I bought her. She always wore the cheap ones I bought from a street stall on our first date. Seeing my stunned expression, she continued, "Over those decades, spending all that time together, even an iceberg would melt, let alone with how well you treated me. Before you died in our past life, you asked if I ever loved you. I hesitated for a moment, but that hesitation wasn't because I didn't love you. I'm just bad at expressing myself. I've always been stubborn, even when we got old. I was just trying to figure out how to say it. But then, as she spoke, Li Xia started crying again. She kept weakly hitting my chest. Who told you to die so fast? How could you die without my permission? You died before I even got the chance to say it. I wanted to tell you that I love you. I really, really love you. Li Xia, Love you, young Jian. The day you died, I cried all night. I cried until I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I found out I had been reborn. In this life, I wasn't going to wait for you to come to me. I was going to come to you. But you bastard, you just kept yelling at me and glaring at me. You were so cold to me. It wasn't until that day after basketball that I realized you had been reborn too. I know you were exhausted in our past life because of me, but do you think I wasn't tired? I gave you 2 sons and 2 daughters, and I helped you manage the Yang family company at the same time. Couldn't you be a little more understanding? With that, she threw herself into my arms, crying like a baby. Listening to her pour her heart out, I slowly thought back on our past life. Even though she was always lukewarm toward me, she was deeply devoted to our family. When the Li family became an industry giant, she never forgot to pull the Yang family up with them. Aside from being cold to me, she was perfect in every other way. Looking at Li Xia sobbing endlessly in my arms, I let out a sigh and gently patted her back to calm her down. After a long while, she finally felt a bit better and looked up. That time at the hotel, it wasn't what you thought. Du Zitang's grandparents came from the countryside. Since there wasn't enough room at his house, I helped them book a hotel room. Du Zitang just tagged along. Besides, Du Zitang and I have always just been friends. We grew up together, but there were never any romantic feelings between us. He just sees me as an older sister. If you don't believe me, come back to my hometown with me right now. My childhood friends and my parents all know the truth. In my past life, I had only heard rumors that her parents tore her and her childhood sweetheart apart to make her marry me. But I never actually looked into it or asked her about it. It had always been a huge knot in my heart. Seeing me hesitate, Li Xia pulled out her phone and made a call. She yelled into the phone, "Get your ass over here right now." Du Zitang popped out from behind a nearby trash can and came running over obediently. Xia. Li Xia hugged my arm, declaring her territory. "Call him brother-in-law." Du Zitang seemed a bit scared of her. He quickly called out to me, "Be brother-in-law." Then, through Du Zitang's explanation, I learned that his parents rarely disciplined him. If it weren't for Li Xia keeping him in check, he wouldn't just be a flashy scooter punk right now. He'd be a full-blown street thug. Plus, Du Zitang already had someone he liked. It was the daughter of the owner of a KTV he frequented. She was the same age as him. They had promised to get married once they were old enough. It suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks. In our past life, when Du Zitang got married, Li Xia asked me to go to the wedding with her. I was petty and refused to go, and his bride was that exact KTV owner's daughter. At first, the owner didn't want her daughter dating a deadbeat like Du Zitang and constantly tried to stop them. So Du Zitang actually went back to school and managed to get into a regular second-tier college. Only then did the owner agree to their relationship. After clearing everything up, the heavy knot in my chest finally unraveled. Li Xia looked at me and said with absolute seriousness, "In this life, I'm not going to touch the violin. I just want to fulfill our dad's dream and take our mom's cosmetics to the global market. Yang Jian, will you give me that chance?" I was in a great mood. I stood up, holding my mom's urn, and walked straight toward the hotel. Seeing that Li Xia wasn't following, I glanced back at her. Standing there, staring blankly at my back, I called out, "Let's go. Back to the room. It's freezing at the beach at night. Don't catch a cold." Li Xia's face lit up with pure joy. She immediately ran over and hugged my arm, resting her head on my shoulder. Du Zitang, meanwhile, shamelessly trotted up to us. Sis, brother-in-law, my ID isn't old enough to book a room yet. You guys have a room, but what about me?" Li Xia pointed to a spot not far away, smirking mischievously. "There's a bridge over there. You can make do under it. Tonight is the most important night for me and your brother-in-law. You're on your own." With that, Li Xia eagerly dragged me toward the hotel. A few months later, I smiled as I looked at the 2 admission letters in my hand. I didn't get into a top-tier university. I just got into a very average first-tier one. After all, I only had 3 months to study. Even as a reincarnator, there was only so much I could do. And that was only because, in the final stretch, I had Li Xia tutoring me. Otherwise, I would have ended up in a second-tier school at best. As for Li Xia, because we were happily dating during that final stretch, she was in a great mood and top form, and easily took first place in the city. But she didn't go to the country's best universities, Tsinghua or Peking. She chose to go to the same university as me. Li Xia kissed my cheek and smiled. "In this life, I'll give you 2 more kids. How does that sound?" I nodded. I had loved her for 50 years. What's another 50 years?